I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. A distinct honor for men and women from Queens for their service to the church.
We never asked your pastors why they wanted to honor you. And if we did, I know the list would have been long and varied.
And now that President Obama's Republican challenger appears set, which way are people of faith leaning? And 90 years is a long time, and a parish in Bay Ridge celebrates.
We're here to celebrate the parish on their 90th anniversary and to make sure that it's here for another 90 years.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. President Obama announced yesterday that he would be posthumously awarding the highest civilian honor in the U.S., the Presidential Medal of Freedom, to Jan Karski, a Polish Catholic. Karski was one of the first people to report the Nazi atrocities during the World War II, meeting with English and German officials in London before heading to the U.S. to meet with President Roosevelt. And although it may not rise to the national level, Catholics across the Diocese of Brooklyn are being honored with a medal they can call their own. It's a token of appreciation for the hard work that they do exercising the church's ministries in their parishes. Last Friday at St. Nicholas of Tolentine Church in Jamaica, Bishop DiMarcio led Vespers where the work of these lay men and women was recognized.
We come simply this evening to honor you for what you have accomplished. Your pastors and priests give you leadership, but you also serve. You also make the church come alive. You make the church real. You give the church substance.
Mrs. Judith DeAngelis, this award will be accepted.
I just found out that last week. Why I'm here, my pastor trusts me and my principal from the school, because maybe they find out I'm working so hard. It's worth it. Anything for God or for my church is worth it.
Jesus in Richmond Hill, Mr. Walter Cooper.
I'm very happy to be here with all the parishioners. Well, it's very exciting that they recognize all the people that are doing so much hard work. Celebrate together for a good cause, as bringing the word of Christ. I'm going to put it, frame it, and be proud that I have something like this, and I could show it to my children.
On the first side of the medal, we see the map of Brooklyn and Queens with little dots placed strategically to mark the parishes. On the other side of the medal, we find the 12 stars, which signify the presence of Mary. After she said, "Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, I'm ready to serve," the Word became flesh. Jesus was able to be born. And so it is with you. We never asked your pastors why they wanted to honor you. And if we did, I know the list would have been long and varied.
I feel very honored because I have been in St. Clair's for over 30 years, and I've been a Sunday school teacher for 25 years. I've been a Eucharistic minister for a number of years. I don't know how many. I've always helped out in the parish, and that's why I think Father McBrien picked me.
I don't think giving to our parish is something we need to be paid back for, because we all receive from our parish every single day. But it's nice to know, but it's also nice to know that other people are doing the same thing to keep our church and our spirit alive and our religion.
And Bishop DiMarcio will lead another diocesan medal ceremony this Friday at St. James Cathedral Basilica, where men and women from Brooklyn parishes will be honored. There's more currents ahead from the Vatican. Words of praise for women religious. That and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. The man selected by Pope Benedict to overhaul an umbrella group for leaders of women's religious communities is sharing some words of praise. Speaking with Catholic news agency Seattle Archbishop Peter Sarton says women religious are a great gift and hopes to work in a way that is positive and recognizes the wonderful contribution of women religious. The Archbishop has been put in charge of revamping the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. The organization says its 1,500 members lead women's religious communities in the U.S. Sarton is in Rome for his ad limina visit with Pope Benedict. The Archbishop was asked to lead the overhaul following a 4-year audit of the Leadership Conference by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. The audit unveiled deviations from the Church's teaching in areas including abortion, euthanasia, women's ordination, and homosexuality. The assessment said that the, quote, current doctrinal and pastoral situation of the LCWR is grave and a matter of serious concern. Now, for its part, the Leadership Conference said it was stunned by the assessment and that its national board would prepare a response. Meanwhile, Pope Benedict recalled the historical role of women in building the Church in America. Speaking with members of the U.S.-based Papal Foundation, the Holy Father noted that he will canonize 2 American women later this year, Kateri Tekakwitha and Mother Marian Cope, both natives of New York State. At that meeting, Pope Benedict also asked members of the Papal Foundation to pray for religious freedom. The Pope did not mention any specific areas of concern, but his remarks came as U.S. bishops and other religious groups mount a fierce challenge to the federal government's contraception mandate. The bishops have called for a fortnight of freedom. The 2-week period from June 21st through July 4th would ask the Catholic community to focus all its energies it can muster on religious liberty. On the 50th anniversary of a major papal document, the Vatican looks back and forward. Rome Reports has that story.
The Vatican is organizing a series of forums that will include the former president of Peru, Alan Garcia, along with the American economist Joseph Stiglitz. Also attending will be the president of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, and the president of the Italian Chamber of Deputies, Rocco Buttiglione. All of them will discuss the effects of John XXIII's encyclical titled Pacem in Terris, since this year marks its 50th anniversary. The Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences is organizing the meeting, which will take place from April 27th to May 1st. The list of speakers also includes Cardinal Reinhard Marx, who will analyze how, based on this encyclical, people can change the world. Cardinal Walter Casper will talk about tolerance and interfaith dialogue. The president of Caritas, Cardinal Oscar Rodriguez Maradiaga, will explain the role social justice plays amid a globalized world. The 5-day meeting will also include debates and speeches given by several university professors from Columbia, Stanford, and Cambridge, all coming together to analyze current issues and challenges in today's modern world.
Pacem in Terris was released in April of 1963. In it, Pope John XXIII discussed in detail the concepts of truth, justice, charity, and liberty. While it's anything but peaceful in Sudan, Catholics are among those feeling the heat in the midst of ongoing conflict in that country. Security forces there have arrested 3 people who were working for South Sudan Caritas. Fighting appears to have reached a boiling point following the decision last year by South Sudan to secede from the rest of the country. Over the weekend, a Muslim mob torched a Catholic church in Sudan frequented by people from the south. Over the weekend, Sudanese warplanes struck 2 towns, South Sudan. A military commander says 1,200 people were killed. The U.S., France, and the United Nations condemned those attacks. The president of South Sudan is in China. He told his Chinese counterpart that attacks by Sudan is a declaration of war. The 2 heads of state are meeting because China has investments in the Sudanese oil industry. The Archbishop of Sudan's capital says the people of the South do not want war and says the conflict is one of economics and control of oil. A clothing company says it never intended to offend anyone with a t-shirt design that bore a resemblance to a symbol of Nazi persecution. The Danish clothing company Woodwood says the t-shirt design in question was an early prototype and was never offered for sale. The shirt included a star that looked like the Star of David Nazis forced Jewish people to wear. The company denies that the image was the Star of David, but ultimately decided not to manufacture the shirt over concerns about its potentially offensive nature. An image of the shirt appeared on the website for Urban Outfitters. It's since been replaced with the correct design. Well, despite major disagreements between the Vatican and China, more than 22,000 people were baptized in China on Easter Sunday. The Vatican news agency Fides reports 75% of those baptized are adults. They come from 101 dioceses across China. The news comes as a meeting got underway at the Vatican to discuss the formation of lay people in China. In 2007, Pope Benedict established a commission to examine important questions to Catholics in China. Earlier this month, in his homily at the annual Chrism Mass here in Brooklyn, Bishop Nicholas DiMarcio talked about the importance of preaching the Chinese people in the diocese.
In the recent 2010 census, it has been revealed to us that over 400,000 Chinese-born immigrants live in Brooklyn and Queens. This population is largely unevangelized. Although in several parishes efforts are being made, and evidenced by the fact that in 4 parishes this Easter Vigil, 120 Chinese converts will either be baptized or received into full communion with the Church. I commend the parishes of St. Rosalia Regina Pacis, Our Lady of Perpetual Help Basilica, St. Agatha, and St. John Vianney for their great efforts.
And at the Easter Vigil Mass at St. John Vianney, Bishop DiMarcio baptized 60 people of Chinese descent. Stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. Coming up, what factor will faith play in the 2012 presidential race? New York Republicans voting in the state's presidential primary on Tuesday, with 95 delegates up for grabs, which, by the way, is the most of any of the 5 East Coast states holding primaries. Mitt Romney is on the hunt. The former Massachusetts governor is looking to expand his lead over Newt Gingrich and Ron Paul in the nomination race for the 1,144 delegates. Now, while New York had once hoped to play a major role in the primary race, those hopes faded when Rick Santorum stopped campaigning. Now, the decision cinched Romney's frontrunner status, and the focus turned more on the general election against President Barack Obama. Still, we continue to track this campaign vote by vote, especially since the Republican candidates and President Barack Obama raise critical issues that directly affect the lives of Catholics and really all voting Americans. To talk more about that, I spoke to John Green earlier today. John is the director of the Ray C. Bliss Institute of Applied Politics at the University of Akron. He's also a senior fellow with the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life. We talked about everything from the importance of the New York primary, the debate over the HHS mandate, and the employment picture. All right, John, I want to read you a quote really quickly. New York hasn't mattered in a Republican primary since 1976, and that's according to Larry Sabato, who's director of the University of Virginia's Center for Politics. So by most accounts, the New York primary is a non-event for so many reasons, not the least of which Mitt Romney's pretty much a shoo-in for the RNC nod. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. I think that we've had a number of contested primaries. You know, the process is always a little bit unpredictable. But historically, because of where New York has come in the process, it's not played the kind of role in the primaries that some other states have. Mm-hmm. So I think that from the presidential point of view, you know, not a lot of excitement in the New York primary. I'm sure there's some state and local races that'll be of interest. But, you know, the attention is beginning to shift to the general election.
Right.
You know, Governor Romney versus President Obama.
Right. Well, still, we can't lose sight, though. There is a combined 231 delegates on the line here in New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Delaware. We still got 3 Republican candidates officially still in the race. What's Romney's strategy in this scenario?
Well, you know, it's interesting because Governor Romney, like other people in his position in the past, would really like to put all of his energy into the general election. But he still has to win enough delegates to get the nomination. And although his major opponent has withdrawn, he has to be careful because if he could find himself in a situation where he doesn't have enough delegates. So, you know, my sense is that the Romney campaign is taking the primaries today seriously in the sense that they want to get those key delegates that they're going to need. I think it's 1,144. I may have that exact number wrong, but it's about that number. And Governor Romney's around 700. So if he were to do very well today in these key states, he would get much, much closer to that 1,100. And of course, at some point he has to do that, right? If he's going to actually be the nominee. So his campaign would really like to turn to the general election, but they've got to take care of business to make sure that they are the nominee.
Absolutely, John. I want to switch gears just a second. We've been tracking Pew Research pretty closely these past few days, showing President Obama lost ground in the past month to Romney among Protestants and Catholics generally. Romney pretty much a favorite among white evangelicals and white Catholics. Is there still time to turn the tide, if that's even an option with these particular demographics, in your opinion?
I think this election is going to be very, very close and very tight. I think that both President Obama and Governor Romney are going to have to work very hard to get the support of the large religious communities in the United States. White evangelicals, are very likely to be Republican. They've trended that way for a while now. On the other hand, black Protestants, Hispanic Catholics are very likely to stay in the Republicans column. In the Democratic column rather, but really where the issue comes up is, what about white Catholics? What about white mainline Protestants? These are groups who are much more up for grabs. And depending on exactly what the top issues become, it could depend on which way they go. So I think President Obama has a really good shot at doing well with these groups, but so does Governor Romney. And, the campaign is going to be quite important.
And John, let's talk about some of these top issues. Republicans have been in line with our bishops on reproductive issues, the HHS mandate. On employment, though, not so much. Now, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has urged Congress repeatedly to reauthorize extended unemployment insurance for people out of work 6 months or longer. Romney has suggested doing away with the current system of unemployment benefits, setting up a system where people would somehow pay for their own unemployment. Past candidates have said they would just dismantle the system altogether. Now, it seems job loss is a pretty big deal, especially in this economy. Is the church more sympathetic to the long-term jobless and other safety net solutions than Republicans are right now?
Well, the Roman Catholic Church, like many religious denominations, chart their own course when it comes to issues. And on a number of issues, Roman Catholics are much closer to the Democratic position than they are to the Republican position. But that's not true across the board. When it comes to social issues, to church-state issues, maybe they're a little closer to the Republicans. And this puts a lot of Catholic voters in an interesting position. Because if they take their faith seriously, and of course many millions of Roman Catholics do take their faith seriously, then which party do they support? Because there's a pretty good argument on things like unemployment and health care and the social safety net for applying Catholic social principles in a way that would lead to supporting President Obama and the Democrats. But, on other issues, Governor Romney and the Republicans look a little bit better. So, we often talk about how Catholic voters can be very conflicted at election time.
Now, as this election runs its course, John, what do you think is going to become the key issue going forward? I know these hot-button issues are not going away, and rightfully so, but will we see economy becoming just a little bit more prevalent as the months continue?
I think so. I think the economic situation and particularly the jobs situation, whether it's helping people who've lost their jobs or creating new jobs, is going to become front and center. In fact, one of the reasons that the polls evened up very quickly, as you noted with, for instance, in the Pew Research Center polls, is because the focus got back on the economy and moved away from some of these more divisive and controversial issues towards something that everybody can agree on, which is a booming economy is a good thing. The question is, how do we get there? And President Obama and Governor Romney have very different ideas of how to do that. So I think that in the end, it's going to come down to which candidate can persuade people that their solution is better. Maybe not perfect, but better than the other side. So I'm looking at it for a very close, hard-fought election, and I think we're going to hear an awful lot about the job situation.
All right, John, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insight on this and look forward to talking to you again soon.
You're very welcome.
Stay tuned. There's more Currents ahead. When we return, 90 years and still going strong for a Bay Ridge parish.
90 years is something to celebrate. I'm glad to be part of it and hope to be around for the 100th.
Finally tonight, if you want to know the history of the church in Brooklyn, look no further than its parishes. This year, the Cathedral Basilica of St. James in downtown Brooklyn, the first church on all of Long Island, is celebrating its 190th anniversary. Flash forward just a bit to another parish celebrating a milestone anniversary. This year, St. Anselm Church in Bay Ridge turned 90. And on Sunday, at a special mass to commemorate the anniversary, parishioners were given a bit of a history lesson.
Today we come to celebrate this 90th anniversary of St. Anselm's Parish. And your patron saint perhaps has something to tell us tonight about peace and about our understanding of how Jesus comes to us.
Grew up here. My kids went to this school, 4 of them, and they graduated from here. I live around the corner. It's a wonderful parish. They've done a lot of good for people.
We're here to celebrate the parish on their 90th anniversary and to make sure that it's here for another 90 years.
By the power of the working of the Holy Spirit, you give life to all things and make them holy.
It was really fun. A lot of singing. It was spectacular.
St. Anselm lived about 1,000 years ago. He was a type of international man, being born in Italy, joining a Benedictine monastery, moving to France, becoming the abbot of a monastery, and finally winding up in England as the Archbishop of Canterbury. I guess it was a little easier to move around those days, and how they learned all those languages, who knows?
Bishop DiMarzio told everybody about St. Anselm and his history.
It was an interesting life he had. He was exiled twice from England, had a fight with the king because the king would not recognize the Pope. So a very strong man. One of the basic things he understood is that faith needs to seek understanding, so that we need to understand our faith. We have to do theology, we have to do study, so that our faith becomes something we can believe in.
It feels very welcoming and friendly, and it's a really wonderful community, very passionate.
Speaking with Monsignor Maloney, and we see a wonderful, vibrant parish that continues to be, especially for the young people, a place of gathering, of education.
My children all went here. It's a very good school. They have very good teachers, and it's a very good school.
They have a very active senior group. They have a young people, an athletic program. They have a book club. They have 20 or 30 different organizations.
We see a very large number of Jesuits and also sisters and also secular priests. So besides educating a lot of children, there has been a lot of contribution of religious vocations to the life of the church.
The neighborhood is changing and the people who live here are changing, but there's enough of us who are staying, who are trying to keep the parish still vital and move on.
We have people, unfortunately, moving out of our parish, younger people, even my own children. It's a beautiful neighborhood, and in some ways, with the economy the way it is, it's unaffordable. They can't buy a home.
90 years is something to celebrate. I'm glad to be part of it, and hope to be around for the 100th.
And that is all for this edition of Currents. Coming up tomorrow, a gala celebration for a group of young Catholics. Plus, the diocese casts its net to foster new vocations. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching and have a good night.